Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bonus Points Podcast. This is a podcast where two childhood friends discuss games that they've spent a couple of weeks playing and then rank them on a leaderboard. I'm Joe Garrett and this is Ollie Guy.
Hello, that was a lovely intro. Also, childhood friends, how long do you think we've actually been friends?
So we probably became friends in like second year of high school, would you say?
I think it might be first
year. Was it first year?
Yeah.
I think we would have probably crossed paths at least, but I didn't like you. Yeah, maybe it was first year. So
Yeah.
so what was that?
I think we would have been 12 or 13.
Okay.
So 20 years.
Yeah, well, no, because I'm now 24. So
And I'm 34.
yeah, you got held back a few years.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years and year 7.
Yeah. That is over half our lives though. You realise that? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
I mean, I love and appreciate you, so it's good, but mad to think about.
That's like a setup. That'd be a good setup for a film, a horror film.
Oh, okay.
Being held the held back thing, not being friends with
Being
you.
friends with me. 20 years of hell.
Oh dear. Anyway, so yeah, this is a video game podcast. We do discuss video games. Do you want to talk a little bit about what video game we're going to be discussing today?
Yes, but I would like to point out it was your choice because I think it's an interesting choice for you because you don't normally pick games like this. So.
Yeah, but I mean, you're pretty sure about it. It was kind of you maybe slightly influenced the choice, or
do you think?
You spoke about the prequel to this game, right?
Yeah.
You
the
suggested
series.
Yeah.
Okay, so the game we are doing today is Natsu-mon 20th Century Summer Kid, which the Wikipedia entry is really short. Like it's not many people played it, maybe. But it's an adventure game developed by Millennium Kitchen and Toybox. Spike Chunsoft first released it in Japan for the Nintendo Switch 2023. Players control a young boy who has adventures in the summer. Players control Satoru, a young boy in rural Japan. Throughout August, players explore the countryside, meet non-player characters in a town, and perform quests. Natsumon 20th Century Summer Kid plays similarly to the Boku no Natsu Yasumi, but features a 3D open world map. Satoru cannot be harmed, but if he runs out of stamina, he will move slower. At the end of each day, he returns home, ending that day's adventures. So there you go. What are you looking at?
I'm looking for because I was going to mention about why I chose it.
Yep.
And there was a video I watched that was basically just talking about this game, just sort of like because not many people, certainly in the West, knew about it, and basically saying, "Oh, it's kind of like a non-combat version of Breath of the Wild, like maybe like a casual version of Breath of the Wild." And so I just wanted to give that person a shout out, but I think that's it. This is it. Okay. This is it. Yeah, I think they might have changed the title from what they originally called it, but I just saw the commentary. So I think it's by someone called, how do you pronounce that? Genosis?
Gnosis? Just Gnosis, but it's written on the screen.
Yeah.
On the screen.
So basically, I think it was this video I watched. And it was basically just like hey, here's this kind of like cool, interesting, I guess kind of big indie game that came out, at least in the West in 2024, came out previously in Japan the year before. And yeah, basically kind of saying that it has, while being a very different game to Zelda, a very different kind of scale in both of development, but also story and setting. It has a lot of the same design sensibilities, kind of the openness and the freedom, and then also quite literally like the climbing mechanics are almost exactly the same.
Gliding,
yeah. And I was looking at it and I really like the setting. The setting is kind of you're a kid going on a summer holiday in Japan. You're kind of part of a traveling circus as well, which I think is new to this one. And yeah, I watched this whole video and I was like, oh, this game looks really cool. And I hadn't even heard of the series beforehand, despite Ollie mentioning to me.
Well, it's not a catchy name, is it? Boku no Natsu Yasumi. So that's what you're going to remember.
Yeah. Not like The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which so yeah, I just wanted, because so I kind of sent that video to Ollie and sort of said like, hey, like, would you want to play this? And you were up for it. And so, yeah, that's kind of the reason this game came about.
I mean, if we're shouting out videos, the reason that I know about the game is there was a 5-hour documentary by a channel called Action Button about the series before this game came out. So I watched that. That's how I knew about it. And then those games never came. They're on PlayStation 1. I think the series is now like 30 years old.
Then there's one on PS2. The second one was PS2.
Yeah, that one you play as an adult. And you have a kid and you can like influence the kid by giving him books.
Oh, no, there was one I saw on.
Maybe there's two. Maybe there's two on
I think there's
PS2.
another. It didn't come out in the West.
Yeah, none of them. I don't think any of them have.
Apart from this one.
Yeah, because the problem they had before, because it was all pre-rendered backgrounds.
Yeah.
The text box is down the right-hand side because the text goes downwards, so they could never bring it over because you'd be reading it like
reformat.
Reformat every single scene because it's pre-rendered would have to be redone. So it never made it over here. Also, I don't know if people would get it, like in terms of the amount of effort it would take to translate it and everything back in the day.
Well, it feels like also back in the day, I think there are a lot more heavy-handed with those sorts of translations. There'd be like, someone says, I'm eating sushi, and they'd be like, I'm eating hamburger. They'll just check, but I think now it's kind of the opposite. I think a lot of people like the Yakuza game because it's like, oh, it's cool to kind of see Japanese culture. And I think now whether it was gamers or execs or wherever it came about, I think that a lot of people are open to it. And a lot of the charm of this game is how like hugely Japanese it is. Obviously we play a lot of probably half the games we've done have to be Japanese games, but this one is really in its essence, it's like, and its pores are dripping with Japanese culture, and that's what makes it special. And so I would worry that if they had translated those older ones, they would have tried to soften those edges a bit. Yeah,
in that Action Button Reviews video, every time he talks about one of the old games, he does like a Western box art for it, and it's always like a kid holding a gun. It's every single time. It's like pointing at the camera.
The thing is there's often been, when you look at big tangent here, but box art, and you see like the beautiful Japanese one, and then you see the European one, which is like same essence, but like they're like little brother, and then like the American one would be like the weird kid next door. Like they're just completely. The one I always think of is Ico, which is probably some of the best box art for the Japanese and the UK version. I think they shared the same.
Yeah.
And have you seen the American one?
Yes, I have. It's horrendous. Also, all the Kirby games, they just make him look really angry. Like, it's exactly the same box art, but they just put big eyebrows on him, so he's like fighty. Anyway, that was a big tangent. So Natsumon. So basically, the game takes place over a month. August 1999. Second game we've done, set in 1999. Pretty weird.
What was the first one?
Ridge Racer.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So all about millennium, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you have 30 days or 31 days? Oh no, August. I don't know. I don't know. It's probably 30. Yeah. So I played up to day 13. That's how far I got.
Okay.
You finish it?
Yeah, I played up to day 30 or 31. I don't know. 28, 29. I don't know. I rolled credits. So
nice.
I played every single day, and I also played because. Like, it's weird. Like, it has a strict, you don't complete the game in a traditional sense. You reach the time limit, the game ends, and you got done whatever you got done in that time limit. Which I found a little bit stressful at the beginning because you'll be out exploring, and then someone would shout at me like, "Oh, I found you! Time for dinner!" And you gotta go. You gotta
as soon as you go near a road, he just turns up, and he's like, "Oh, I found you!"
Sometimes when it was getting close, it would always be at 5 p.m. I'd be like, I'm at the top of the mountain. I'm like, I'm just going to try and like glide for ages. Or I'm going to swim out into the water.
It's like doing a manual at the end of Tony Hawk. Like, try to keep the time
Time's up. Can I keep going? I found that time limit a bit stressful, especially when like at the beginning of the game, you have loads of stuff to do. And so you can adjust the time limit, both to kind of make it relaxed, as it says, to give you more time, or even to give yourself less time. Maybe if you're like, oh, I've done everything I need to do today, you can switch it. So I started off relaxed. And I don't recommend doing that because I think I ended up, I still had other things I could do in the world, but I think I unintentionally hurt the pacing and I should have trusted the developers. But and I kind of even knew it as I was doing it, but just psychologically it stressed me out, the time limit.
I mean, this is probably the least stressful game ever made. So I don't know how you managed to.
I was sweating.
This is like the stress-free version of Dead Rising. You know how Dead Rising just ends at a certain day. Yeah. This is the same layout, but it's just like, I think maybe you're playing as a 10-year-old boy, so like a lot of the things I was just like, it's not my problem. I mean, they were like, we've got to get 30,000 yen for the circus. I was like, well, I'm 10. Like, it's not on me to do that. Like, I'm just gonna go and hang out and talk to people and chill, basically.
And with most of the missions, at least the time-sensitive missions, you get no reward for doing them. So there's kind of like your main missions, which are mostly tied around collecting things in the world. You collect bugs, fish, fossils,
climb objects.
Climb objects. There's a little ghost girl we'll talk about a little bit later on. Find her. So, but these are things you can kind of do whenever, essentially. And those you will get a sticker that increases your stamina, which is allowed, does what stamina does, you can assume. But then all of the other things, the kind of like encounters or like little stories or small stories.
It's like big adventures and little adventures.
Big adventures, little adventures. Yeah. And then, like all of those things that are time sensitive. And it'd be like, this person is on the swings at this time. If you don't talk to them, you miss it. Or this person's down on the beach, or there's a thing tomorrow in the evening. If you don't show up, you don't experience that. But all you're missing out on is the experience. And I don't mean XP. I mean the experience of seeing that event. I think once I realized that, I kind of, which is different from Dead Rising, I relaxed and I was like, okay, like that time limit's not going to hurt me as much. I just want to do what I want to do, what I feel compelled to do is what I'll do.
And what did you feel compelled to do?
Everything.
Put the things in the longest possible day. I caught every single bug. I caught every single fish.
Got every bug on the first day. Overachiever. It's weird because you do have to fight your standard gamer game because
gamer brain.
Gamer brain. My gammy brain. Because we've been trained through all of the games we've played throughout our lives to complete goals and objectives, and this game has bits of that, but it's mostly about, hey, you're a kid, you're free, like you said, you've got no responsibilities, and you'll wake up early in the morning, you do your morning exercise with everyone in the town, which is another thing talking about the Japanese culture. I know that's a thing that they do a lot. And then you're off to explore. And, there's a few sort of guides that will kind of recommend things to do or you'll pace things out. But really, you're kind of free to go in whatever direction you want and focus on whatever you want, at least for that individual day. It's like, am I going to go fishing today or going to bugs? Or am I going to go to that forest that I've not been to yet? Shall I go look around there and see what there is?
And the days, I think they last about half an hour real time, don't they? More or less.
Oh, I'd assume shorter than that, but maybe. Oh, really? I've not timed. Possibly.
Yeah, and the weird thing is about it, which I think this game does really, really well, which I didn't realise till after a few days of playing, like in-game days, is that I thought I'd be like, I don't know what I'm going to do today. But then actually at the end of every day, I'm like, God, I've done so much today. I would literally walk out the holiday home you're staying in and be like, I'm just going to go in that direction. And then by the end of the day, I'm like, God, I caught like all these new bugs. Like, I found this sunken ship. I did this and that. And then you kind of only realize it when you go home and write in your diary. Yeah. And it's like, oh, I'm writing loads of things. There's a couple of days where it's like, but there's nothing to write. Where I was like, oh, I've wasted a day. That's just because I was writing in it throughout the day. Like some days I would do it as I was going. So that's like, I'd say, one of the main mechanics of the game is filling out your encyclopedia of what's on the islands, what activities you can do, what bugs there are, what fish there are. That's quite a major part. And what you do is you fill it in, you just a little drawing, and then you can choose like one of 3 ways of writing what the activity was, which sounds like nothing, but it's very charming to be like, do you want to write something more
like
detailed?
Short and sweet? Or
and then you also get to choose a stamp as well, which is also really nice. Like when I first did it, I was like, I'm just going to choose a sun every time. But eventually I was like, getting into it and
I wish, you know what, the stamps.
Yeah, wish you get more.
I wish there was. There's a weird selection.
Yeah,
where things there's the ice cream stamp, and I never had ice cream.
No, the boat.
Yeah, there's a boat.
Like a cruise ship type.
Yeah, but the whole thing is there's like a circus is one of the main things. Nothing to do with the circus.
No, not much to do with this. I mean, as far as I got.
Oh no, in the game there is.
Oh, is there? Okay.
Yeah, that becomes you wouldn't have seen that yet. That becomes kind of one of the main things.
I got up to where I got up to in the story, they were like, "We're going to have a festival in 2 days' time," and then that's where I stopped.
Seems like a good time to stop.
Well, I just ran out of time. I just ran out of time to play
just like the game. Just like the game. You ran out of time.
But to be honest with you, I felt like I saw enough. Like I didn't feel like I've missed out on anything.
The circus.
Yeah, but like,
did you do the fireworks?
Yes.
Okay.
So like the circus, like. I'm going to completely guess that you watch a 1.5 minute cutscene where 3 people say something.
No, okay. So the circus kind of becomes the circus becomes the reason for saving up money.
Yeah.
Because you're making money the whole time through the game as this little kid, kind of selling things and stuff, donating things to the museum.
Yep.
Eventually, I don't know, did you ever get to raising pigs?
Yep.
So one of the big ways to get is you can raise pigs, and every time one's fully grown, you get like 10,000 yen. And
nice.
That becomes like I had like hundreds of thousands of yen.
Yeah,
and I don't know what that is in any other currency. I know it's probably not crazy amounts.
It's 100 yen is £2.
Okay, so not bad for a 10-year-old.
No, not
To be
bad at all.
fair. So what happens with the circus is they do a performance.
Yep.
Which is what you thought it would be, but the performance is really rubbish and they all mess up.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically you end up, you become the director of the circus.
Okay,
so you
cool.
choose who's performing, but then you can also buy new equipment, which allows them to get new routines. You can buy new music. You can buy new outfits, which increases their chance of succeeding.
Yeah.
And then depending on how good the performance is, you kind of get a rating and you get a bit of money. And then like you get different stars. And then the more stars you have, the more stuff that you can buy. And eventually, by the end,
better.
Eventually, by the end, you have a really amazing
why
show.
is he's 10 years old? Why is he doing this? Why is he financing this operation? What's the story like?
Because it's more fun for the game. Like they talk about that. Like he's like they say like, oh, you should direct it. And he's like, what? I'm like a kid. Like, what do you mean? And they're like, you'll be fine. Like they do discuss that, the fact that you are you're part of the circus troupe. You've grown up in the circus.
You wear a t-shirt that says circus on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's not like they just got a random kid off this. It's like your family business.
Yeah. Because a lot of the stuff for me, like the quests in the game, I much more was kind of leaning towards ones that weren't really to do with the NPCs because I found that NPC interactions not really worth paying attention to because like I don't know if it was badly written to start with or if it was just translated not very well or if it's because every conversation, half of the participants are 10 years old, that they're like, I don't know what that is. And it's like, okay, I don't really know if the NPCs are worth talking to, so I just ended up. By the end of it, I was just smashing through the talking.
I quite like the dialogue.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not always.
Because a lot of like words, you can tell they're doing like wordplay, but it doesn't work because it's not in English. But like that's quite a lot of it. It's like
that's the gamer game. That's
yeah.
There was a few kind of really like because obviously the game is kind of about nostalgia.
Yep.
And a lot of characters kind of nostalgia and like. I don't think the game is even really for kids. I think it's for adults.
Yeah, I think it's the older narrator, like the guy who does the voiceover. He's like basically what it is he's looking back at his holiday and he's like recalling it. And those bits are good. Like where you go to the Torii Gate out at sea. Did you do that? There's like a gate, huge stone gate on the island, and he like talks about how like it was crazy that he was 10 years old. It's like, oh, it is actually nice, like touching. But I did find that like talking around the table. I was just like, what is anyone talking about? Like, did not hold my attention at all. Yeah,
the table stuff was a bit, but you're not boring, but it's just you do it every time. It's basically the end and beginning of the day. They have like a meal.
Looks nice though.
Yeah, it looks really good. And they always say like, today we're eating this, and this, and like, there was one particular bit with. Did you ever go up to the big mountain in the middle?
Yes, and I met the guy who's carrying the boxes, Death Stranding guy. And that's how you get the gliding. You get the gliding cape. Yeah, I did that. Yeah.
So if you keep going up to talk to him, he tells you different stories, and one of them he tells you the story about is Natsu-mon because you play as Satoru.
Yep.
But he talks about Natsu-mon, and what I assume is he's talking about the character from the first game.
Oh, okay.
Is my game. So he says about this story, and I assume in the first game you would keep going up the mountain. And he says about this kid kept coming up the mountain every day, and then he says about the like eventually he stopped going because he grew up, and saying it all comes to an end. Like that's like, but then there's like part of the thing that makes special moments special is the fact that they end. And if they didn't end, they wouldn't feel special. And I thought that was, and they bring the music in during that bit. And I thought that was like really nice. It actually really reminded me of Toy Story 3. Yeah. When it was like, oh, like Andy's grown up and the kids are part. Because it's like, I aged perfectly with Toy Story. I was always the age of Andy, and including like the third one. It kind of reminded me of that, and so there was a few really nice sentimental moments. Oh,
definitely,
throughout.
It definitely does have those nice moments, but I would say 85% of the dialogue is like, I work at the bakery. Oh, not really. I work at the butcher's. I'm not telling you where I work. Bye. And it's like,
that girl,
what am I doing? Like, what are you talking about? I don't know anymore. And the other guy that just like, there's like a guy in it just like grunts and like, he's like the big guy.
Yeah, like, he's like, oh.
Yeah. And I just, like the character design is really good as well. Yeah. Like the characters look amazing. The art style is phenomenally good.
They do the thing where for the facial features, at least that move, there's no geometry. So they have the character. So it's like, it's just pictures of mouths moving, but done really, really nicely. And then, the world itself looks really great as well. Yeah.
And your little crew, your little Flatfoot, the like little detective agency. I liked all of them. great. I mean, just character stereotypes, but they were great. Like,
yeah, and it's once again, it's so that detective agency is basically the group of kids that live in that village. You end up becoming friends with them, and they're a detective agency, and they're solving these cases, but they're all like nothing. It's like it's like we saw a guy wearing a hat. We got to investigate this. It could be like but it's like well, that's what you would do as kids. So it's all they're out as if you're a detective doing these things, but it's all like partly imaginary, and they all kind of know it. But then
they do. Yeah,
and it's like I mean, the game made me think of like I can't remember where I heard it, but the thing of like when you had a group of friends that you used to go out and like play with every week. There was one time that you went out, and it was the last time you were going to meet up and go and play, but none of you knew it.
Yeah.
I even think for that for video games. I think of that for like Halo 3. I used to play Halo 3 with my friends every night and like not even shooting, like just messing in Forge and custom games. And
you must have lost a lot of matches.
Hugs?
Yeah.
Like just racing around. I mean, people that played Halo 3 will know what the sort of stuff you do. And like we used to do that like, not every night, but very regularly. And there must have been one time when we all jumped on and played together and then logged off. And we didn't know that was going to be the last time we did. This game really put me in that mindset. And then especially playing with those kids, I was like, oh yeah, that's what it's like with playing with kids that age.
Yeah, I remember being like probably 10 and being like, we're going on missions. Yeah. It would just be like nothing. Like, what's the mission? We need to investigate upstairs. And we just go into each room and investigate.
You'd have like roles. Okay, I'll be the leader. Yeah, you be the leader. I'll be your second in command. Yeah.
Like, you get to hold the torch because you're the leader. Yeah. I remember doing all that.
And this is the closest it's put me like, obviously it's nothing close to actually living that. But it's sort of like, it almost just reminded me of those times is what it did nicely.
And also it's a very interesting and unique setting for a game. Like you're not going to never see games. It sounds like it might be like Animal Crossing or something, but it's not really. It's much more. It's much closer to Breath of the Wild than Animal Crossing, despite how it looks. Yeah, which is kind of weird to think about. I think I kind of veered more towards the collecting aspects. One thing I did find really overpowering is that I think despite their best efforts, a lot of the game is about climbing. And I think they didn't want to make a game about climbing, but because so much of it is climbing all the time, I ended up thinking about things like, oh, how do I get my stamina up so I can climb up to that ledge? I don't know. I don't think that's what they intended, but that's kind of how it plays out.
It never comes up in the story about him being amazing at climbing.
Insane climber. Like sheer rock face. He's just like...
And also just like, did you see when you get the flip, like the double jump?
Oh, I didn't get a double jump.
So eventually you get a double jump.
I got a higher jump, but I didn't get a double jump.
Okay, so you get, and it's like you're literally just like jumping across rooftops. Like the double jump, he does like a front flip. It's like and so it's like that and then you could double jump to then start your climb and just so like he ends up becoming like Spider-Man like by the end.
He should go in the circus.
I know it'd be great. But yeah, as you say, like the story doesn't seem about it. But as I say, there's a few other little like equipment, I guess, but like the main upgrade, you're only getting stickers that increase your stamina. Like that's all they've got is you get better at climbing. And I do like the fact they kind of similar to Breath of the Wild, where the beginning of Breath of the Wild says, "Hey, Ganondorf's in the middle of the world. Yeah, you have to kill him, and then the credits will roll. Yeah. Do it whenever you're ready." And I love that. So in this game, it's not quite like that, but it's the first mission or one of the first missions you get is, "Hey, here's 5 really tall things in the world. Try and climb to the top of them." It's like you're not going to complete that mission until the very end of the game. But you always have that there, and you'll kind of gradually get them as you go throughout. And I did like that side.
Yeah, I think maybe my mistake was like using that as my barometer, where it's like, okay, I've done 3 of the big things. How am I going to do the 4th? Well, I need to catch this many bugs. But I guess all it's doing really is pushing me down the right paths of the game. Did you also realize that if you haven't caught a bug before, it had a ring around it?
Oh, what? Yeah, in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, they tell you.
You did realise. Oh, you just told. I didn't realise it told you. When I realised that, I was literally like, oh, catching bugs is really easy. It's literally like, that one has a ring around it. Capture that. So I think I ended up with like 75.
Yeah, there's over 250.
Yeah.
And you keep... I think they must scatter them out throughout the game because like, I would get like over 5 every day.
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, how am I... Because I'm like... This one was like right outside my house. How have I not come to the guest house? How have I not come across this one yet?
Yeah, I think the other thing is I think there's only like 36 objects in the game. Because when you get an object, you get the same like, it comes up with a bug like 30 out of 200. So when you find like, you buy like the Acorn shooter, it's like 3 out of 36. Or like do you find like any of the Tengu stuff, like the flip flops?
Yeah.
And it's like, God, there's not many objects. Like, or even finding a piece of junk count as one object. So yeah, I don't know. It's just the game feels so much bigger. Like it feels really grand, and there's lots of things in the world to do. Yeah, I don't know. At the same time, I was a bit like, I kind of wish there was a bit more to do other than collecting bugs. And the fish is really hard to get as well because
the fish system I hate.
Yeah, the fish is not
because it's like so you got to collect all these fish, and then there's rare fish, and it's like
they don't have rings around them.
They don't have rings around them, and like the fishing is as basic. Like there's not even really a mini game. It's just you wait and it says hit, and then you press, and it's not even tight timing.
It's that Animal Crossing fishing. But you just press A and
Animal Crossing's better because it has the whole like doot.
Oh yeah, it does. Yeah, no,
like,
it does.
And then there's like, and you could sometimes you go too early.
Yeah,
and stuff.
no, I forgot about that.
This you don't even have to look at the screen. You could just set fishing, and then it will go like hit, and you go like you press the button. Like it's so, and you're just there, just waiting, doing nothing.
Yeah,
and it's goes beyond being peaceful. It kind of becomes dull, and I mean, like getting rare fish was just really seems just quite unlikely. And there's like, do you want to put it on the surface or go in? Do you want to use earthworms or crabs? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to use earthworms or crabs.
And then the guy who teaches you to fish leaves quite quickly as well, doesn't he? He
the
leaves
expert.
He leaves it after like 6 days or something.
Yeah.
So he could have hung around and gave you some more tips. But the thing that the game does do really well in terms of variety is like it's really good at leading you to locations and then like framing those locations in a way where like you come around a corner and see something. So like a good example of that is did you do the castle?
Yeah.
Did you get inside it?
Yeah.
So first of all, when I went and knocked on the door and I couldn't get in, I was like, okay, I don't know, because I didn't have the key yet, because I found it quite early. But then I went up the hill, and then through the gap in the branches, you can see there's a little hole in the roof. And I was literally like, that's where I need to go. Like, so then I was working towards doing that.
You go in the front door, and you can see there's like the whole stuff in, but there's like a grate.
You're stuck behind a grate, yeah. So then that was like became this mission for me, where I was like, but then luckily the Flatfoot guys interrupted and were like, oh, we've got a key for the castle. I was like, oh, okay.
Which color key did you pick?
Blue.
Yeah.
And it worked. I don't know if they all work or what.
No, I picked. I think I picked. I tried to pick that. Like, well, which one would be like old? It's meant to be old. And I was like, they probably didn't have a blue one, so I think I picked either black or silver. I think the blue one was just the middle one. I was like, yeah. I assume whichever one you picked was going to work, but I tried to think about it. Do you want to talk about that because that's actually a standout?
I was going to say, yeah, it's quite unique. So that's like almost like a very simple Zelda dungeon for the Acorn shooter.
Yeah.
Where you're basically climbing up levels through this castle, and then there's like acorn targets. Like the first one, you got to shoot one, and it opens a gate. Then you got to shoot 2 different ones until you kind of get up to the top, and then you do all that. And then when you do get to the top, the reward is kind of them just being like, "Oh, it's a nice view," which is nice. It is nice. Like this game is like the epitome of like the journey. It's not about the destination; it's about the journey.
Yeah.
So you get up there, and they're even saying stuff like that, aren't they? About like how nice the view is. On the Switch. Don't know if the view's that nice, but
really?
Yeah, it's a lot of just like green flat textures.
Do you want to talk about? Because I played on. I didn't mention this. We didn't mention this at all. The platforms. It's only PC and Switch.
Yeah.
So no other home consoles. And from that video that I watched, they mentioned like they didn't say it was amazing on Switch, but they were like it's fine on Switch, and so I thought it'd be okay. But I played Steam Deck and. It was, high settings, like locked 60. I could have gone higher if I wanted, but it would have hurt the battery life. And then playing docked as well, 1080p when I got that, and it was fun. So it's obviously really the thing is when games because it was Switch first. So obviously when games target Switch, they're obviously optimized enough that then it makes it good for everything else. But it sounds like the Switch was a bit compromised, maybe.
Well, I said to you that it ran worse than 1,000 Times Resist, and then I played it again, and I was like, oh, actually, it's not as bad as 1,000 Times Resist. It's not great. It's probably like 25 frames a second. The loading is pretty long. And also the loading screen is like the little Satoru like chalk outline. And he's like running. But it gets stuck like as it's dropping in. So it's a massive blurry picture of, and I would just be looking at that. It's like the most of the loading.
I kind of like when you said it, I was like, what even are the loading screens?
They're
like so not a thing.
And the exteriors generally look pretty bad. The interiors look really good. Inside buildings look great, and it also inside buildings seems to run at a solid frame rate as well. But
it goes to like locked camera views when you're inside.
It looks great inside.
Yeah,
really, really like considered camera angles and everything. So, but yeah, a lot of the outsides, and also I get a lot of sound problems where like sounds basically don't like gradually come in and then leave. It would just be like it start and then it would just stop. So I say, I mean, this is an example that I can remember, but imagine a car driving past. It would be like 100% volume.
Oh, really?
And then it would just stop when it's off the screen. So
that's a shame.
Yeah.
It sounds like then, if anyone is interested in playing this, if you can play the PC version, it seems like it's Switch is, you know, because some people might be like, oh, I'd like to play PC, but you know what, Switch is more comfortable, whatever. But it sounds like no. It's one. It's a shame because it feels so suited for the Switch.
Yeah.
Then I can imagine hunched over a mouse and keyboard, you know, 120 FPS, Natsu-mon, Acorn shooter,
jumping, spinning around,
360. The other thing that, like, one of my other favorite mechanics, and I wish she was in even more than she was, is I really like the Ghost Girl.
Oh, her name was like Washiki something or other. Was
yeah, I can remember her name.
She was a funny looking little. When I first saw her, I was like, "Oh, maybe this game isn't like what I thought it was like."
You right at the beginning by the tree. And you're like, "What was that?" Like,
yeah, because you get the speech bubble. You're just running around the tree like looking for.
And doesn't she like go like hee? Like,
yeah. And then someone says the big guy says like, "Oh, I saw a ghost girl out the back of the house."
Yeah.
And so basically, her whole deal is you play games with her, but it's like a game of tag or like. There's a rain boot and she's hid the other one. You've got to play.
I like those.
I like the games. They're fun games.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just finding her. Sometimes you just walk around here, and it's like, where is she? I think the best way to describe them is they're really similar to Korok seeds.
Yes,
Zelda.
they are like Korok
even some
seeds,
of the they even have the target ones where you got to shoot the balloons. Did you see any of those?
I didn't do that one, no.
So there's a few of them where you got to use the acorn shooter.
Yeah.
And there's like balloons and you got to pop them all, which is just exactly as it is in the Zelda games.
Yeah, there was a few things like that where I thought, look, I'm not like desperate for rewards or something every single time I do something in a game, but there was a part where I think his name's Jory, like the little flatfoot boy, the really young one.
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, by the way, out the back, I've set up an acorn shooting range.
Yeah.
And I shot all the bottles off and just nothing happens. And I was like, I mean, it was nice to shoot them off, but also was kind of expecting something to come with that.
You're
like,
just playing.
You're just playing. You're just playing. Going on the swing.
World.
You're just swinging.
Yeah,
you're just playing.
But it's just little nice
it is
moments.
Nice. It's a nice game.
Yeah, and then like especially when you have a nice moment like that, like you go up and speak to someone somewhere, and it's like feels like a really natural. You just like I wonder whether they're there in that place every day, but sometimes it's like, oh, this day this person's here, and I had this little thing with them, and then when I get back to write in the diary, he writes like, oh, I spoke to the old man at the lighthouse.
Yeah,
he seems lonely. Like,
yeah.
Stamped fish.
That lighthouse key, man. Because he's like, oh, I think I left the key on the roof. And I was like, on the roof of the lighthouse? So then I was like, how do I get it? But
he says on his house, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I assumed he like lived in the lighthouse. But then
there's a house.
I know, but I just didn't think it would be that easy. Like I didn't think he'd be like, oh, I've left the key like there over my shoulder. So I was like, I spent like 2 days running around, like, how do I get up there and like looking for it? Then I was like, maybe he just means on the roof, that little blue shack next to the rock. And it was just literally right
the blue house.
Yeah.
Stop trying to do that. I know. Lighthouse house.
I know, but it's like, what? It's almost like so simple that it was like when we did Killer 7. Do you remember? The puzzle was you got to click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in a row. That, we both did it wrong because it was like, can't be that easy.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, with the things that he said about like, oh, we couldn't find the key, and then there's like a cinder block that you can move up there. So all those cinder blocks, you can move them, and you find like bugs and stuff under them. And he said, oh, I can't find my key, and I went to the cinder block, and he's like, you can move it, and I was like, well, here it is. I did it. It's like I found an earthworm. I was like, I was like drop it in the lock, like.
There's also a quest pretty early on in the game where you have to light the torches on the path.
Yeah,
that's a great quest. Really clever because you run past those torches quite a few times, and then he's like, "Oh yeah, you need to turn the torches on for me." So then I run up to them, press them. He's like, "Oh no, the button's on the top," and it's like just higher than you can jump. So then all of a sudden, all of the torches on the road, you're like, "Oh, that one's got a tree next to it. That one I can climb on the circus tent." And I was like, "It's actually a really clever way of like teaching you to kind of think outside the box when it comes to like climbing and scaling stuff." And I thought that was a really, really cool mission. I wish there was more like that.
Well, I turned them on every day.
I did 3 days.
Or every night.
And then he gave me 500 yen and I was like, cheers, mate, we're done.
Yeah. Well, because eventually you can jump higher
Oh, there's
you
easy
just,
then.
You just
yeah.
jump on. And so it was like, once it got to like nighttime, and if I was going into town, I just got into my room. And once you can, just to show you how good the double jump is, you know, there's sometimes too close, but then there'd be like one really far away.
Yep.
You can jump from one of those groups all the way to the
Oh
other
my
one.
God.
That's how far. Like, I can show you after the podcast. Like the distance you can jump is crazy.
That's mad. Okay. Oh, one other thing I've got actually, which I hate doing because it's like I don't like complaining about something that's not in the game. But there was a part where, you know, when you meet the fireworks guy, and outside his house there's like the huge craters.
Mm-hmm.
So I found them before I spoke to him, and I was like, oh man, was this island like at war? Thinking they were like massive, I don't know, like missile craters or something. And then I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if there was more of like the history of the island in the game, but you don't really get much of that. And then when you do get it, he's kind of like, I'm just a kid. So I don't, which is fine, but I did feel like that would have been quite a cool backstory.
It is I do like the setting. I like the fact that it's beautiful, but it feels quite real. Like there'd be like trash along the floor. Like like there'd be like little cans that you can just walk over, or even like bottles you can collect to recycle, and like construction sites that you can go into, and electricity point. It's not just beautiful Japanese countryside. It's like, oh yeah, it used to be all pretty with tourists, but now we don't get as many, and they've built like a motorway like over the island and stuff.
Over the water. The motorway's like going through the sea, isn't it? Yeah.
Like it's like I do think it's an interesting setting.
Speaking of trash, I think the game's economy is just not very good, because like you find bottles for like 20 yen. I was like, oh god, okay, if I need 75 yen to buy an acorn cheese, okay, I need, you know, 6 bottles or whatever. Then I was like, oh, actually, if I just run to this hill, I can get diamonds for free, and they're there every day, and they're worth like thousands of yen each. So the whole economy was just a bit like, what? Like lopsided.
Oh yeah, it's completely broken.
Yeah,
especially later on. Once you get to the pig farming, so you can have 3 pigs in your pen, and then you can feed them 10 acorns a day each. So, and then like they grow up, and then you can put a new one in. So I always had like 10 pigs in my back pocket that I didn't have room to put in. And then I'd feed all the pigs the acorns. They would grow up. Then I'd feed acorns to the new ones.
Yeah.
I had a good route to like, I always ended up with so many acorns. I knew where all the oak trees were. And then you get 10,000 yen for each one, which is just so out of whack compared to everything else. And then eventually outside, you wouldn't have seen this. It's quite cool. Outside the circus, they had a bunch of stalls. And there's shops and stuff. There's also mini games you can do. There's like what you wanted. There's a shooting target game, which is actually really fun. There's a game, you know, kind of like the game, like with almost a bit like pachinko, but not, you know, like pinball, but without flippers. I guess just pinball, and then they added flippers.
What's that called? It's called like Balatan or something, or Batalan. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So there's one of those, but you control the power you plunge, and like once you get them in a line, you get more balls will drop out. And then you win prizes from them. You win like dolls and stuff, and you can also win acorns and that, and then you also win diamonds from them. And it's only 100 to play, and the diamonds sell for thousands. So you could, if you could infinite money easily. Yeah. And then the game never gives you anything that you could possibly spend it on.
No,
like you will end up with so much money.
I bought everything in the toy shop. Within like 3 days.
And then the circus stuff gets more expensive. It's like things are like 50,000 and stuff, but that's still like, it's like I earned that today. Like, like it's, so eventually I just ended up with loads of money, and I was hoping there'd be something at the end where it's like, oh, but we need a new tent or something. Yeah. And I was going to be like ready, but no. And there was actually a bit where the fireworks guy wanted the circus to sponsor him or something. Right. And like wanted a bunch of money. And then they say this thing like, oh, sorry, we just can't afford that. We haven't got much money. And then they look at me like, Satoru, unless you've got like a bunch of money saved up, ha ha ha, but you're only 10. And then they all walk up and I'm like, oh, I do. I've raised like an army of pigs and I'm rich from them.
God, you're like a Factorio pig slum that you were like
eventually I maxed out pigs. Like there were so many of them in there.
That's crazy. Speaking of extra things to do, and also we touched on the castle, I did find that I would climb somewhere or find something that I would assume would reward me or have a secret, and it wouldn't. The big one being, did you go to the waterfall place?
On like the bottom right?
Yeah, and it's called like something falls, Tomorrow Falls or something. And I managed to fly into the cave where the water comes out, and it's just a black wall. And I was like, oh, I thought there was going to be something. Like, took me ages to get in there.
Yeah. There are other stuff in that area. You do find
a lot of blue butterflies, but a lot of rare bugs in there. But then also, that's the only place in the game that I managed to get a message that said you can't go any further. I tried to fly to the left of that
Yeah.
It had rocks and stuff, but it was like, it just blocked me. I just fell straight down.
Yeah. There's a few of that around the edge. And also there's a few places, like if you try to go, there's like a train and you can get the train. And if you try to go through the train tunnel, it's like, probably shouldn't go through there. It's like, yeah, fair enough, game.
Yeah, I mean, it's great that Satoru is completely invincible.
Yeah, that's no full damage, no
full
health.
damage.
So,
Even if you fall off the top of a mountain.
Yeah, and
he just landing and like, ooh.
He just shakes it off.
Yeah, but he's fine. Which is obviously nice. And cars, trains stop instantly. I never figured out buses. I bought tickets, but I just couldn't figure out how to get them. So
just press left on the D-pad and choose to go anywhere.
So you don't have to go to a bus stop?
No.
Oh, I went to a bus stop and I was waiting like, where's the bus? Where's the bus? Because you buy tickets
skip
opposite.
through all the tutorials?
Pretty much. It's my bad. But because I bought the bus ticket opposite the bus stop where the guy's standing, so I was like, oh, to go wait for the bus.
So you can buy them at any bus stop as well, but it's just a bit cheaper if you buy them from him. So basically, it's a really good fast travel system because basically you go to actually it's basically the same as Breath of the Wild, which is also I think a really good fast travel system. Is so you go to the bus stop, you have to discover it. Once you click on it, it's like you have discovered blah blah, Mushroom Forest.
Yep.
And then from any other point, you press left on the D-pad and you can teleport to that.
That's how you
so,
do it.
so once you've discovered it once, you can go back there quick because obviously time's a thing.
Yeah.
But you've got to use a ticket which you need to buy.
You have to buy in tens.
Yeah,
right?
and even though they're cheap, or you can just pay to go on, but it costs more. You can just say pay 100 yen or whatever to go on. But I think it's 900 for 10, so it's not even that much of a markup.
Yeah.
So even though it's really cheap, it's still psychologically, if there's one close by, you're like, oh, I'm going to walk because I don't want to waste a ticket. But if you are at the beginning of the day and you want to go straight to the other island, you're like, oh, I use the ticket. So I think having just that small like cost involved means that you're not going to just fast travel around the whole world and never, because you do want to explore. Because as you're running to places, that's when you're finding bugs and stuff.
Not the destination.
Exactly.
I did use the train a lot, so I wasn't running everywhere. But also, it's not that the island's not that big.
Well, the place that the train goes to, it's quicker to run to. If you're going from the guest house, it's so close that other town. If you think about it, rather than like it takes longer to go down to the train station than just run to that town.
Yeah, maybe getting the train was a bit more of a role play for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going over to the next town, which is that the other town that has the like clock tower.
Yeah, and like the newspaper guy and stuff.
Yeah, and the newspaper guy. By the time I spoke to him, I had loads of his missions already done. Because he asked you to fill in your encyclopedia, and I had the first 2 levels done already, so that was a nice little earner.
Hardcore gamer here.
Hardcore gamer. I think the reason I was skipping a lot of the dialogue, other than the fact that I didn't think it was that good, which is purely subjective on my part, is the conversation system is bad. For me, I don't know if I was doing it wrong, but you have to use every single option.
Yeah,
and they'd be like, "What color is Joe's t-shirt?" And I'd be like, green, red, and white, and I'd have to also say it's red, it's white, despite the fact that I know it's green for no reason. Especially if you give them the correct answer first, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you're right. Tamani-san or whatever would be great for the circus." And then you say, "What about Kobayashi?" No, not them. It's like, but I know I've already given you the right answer.
It's so infuriating.
Yeah, and then if you pair that with the fact that a lot of the jokes aren't translated, it's like, oh, do you know what I don't know, a detective's day rate is, and then a day rate? Are you talking about a vibrate? No, I'm talking about a rake. And it's like, what are you talking about? I have to keep clicking through.
The worst thing is sometimes it doesn't do that.
Sometimes it's one and done.
Sometimes, so it's like as if it's some crazy thing. Like they had the technology, like they it's in the game that could work, but they force you to go for it. You just remind me though that whole thing with that secret detective, and
he's like standing in the hallway.
So this is suspicious. This is suspicious. Yeah. This is all very. It's so like that goes. It's so fun. It's just this guy who's like a private detective, like looking into the circus, because the circus troupe basically, you probably heard about this. They didn't pay the last town they were at.
Oh, is that why? Because the mum and dad go back, don't they?
Yeah. So he's investigating it, but it's like really like kids cartoon like. I'm not a detective. And then like they have a thing where he keeps going into town and he's on like the phone talking about it, and he'd be like, oh yes, apparently they've not like paid it. Like, yeah, I was on the phone with the person at the bank, and you hang up. And then if you're going to talk to him, he's like, were you listening to my conversation? And you'll be like, no, I didn't hear you talk about the guy at the bank. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, no, they keep doing that shit, but then he ends up in just really weird conversations with his mum. And so it's so like over the top. Like he starts asking you questions about like, do you know what a private detective would do? And it's all but he's like pretending that everyone doesn't know he's a private detective. Like I don't know, maybe it's my bad sense of humor, but I thought it was quite funny. And then another one that also really made me laugh, you might not have seen. There's someone else who shows up. It's like a girl with glasses who stays at the guest house.
Is she the one that works at the bookshop?
She wants to write a guidebook.
Oh no, I didn't see her.
Yeah, so she goes in a bit later, and so you talk to her, and she says her name. I can't remember what it is, but he says like, oh, as in like looking at the stars or something,
right?
Like what it means in Japan. She's like, oh, so are you an astronomer? And she's like, no. I mean, then every time you speak to her, you just ask her about astronomy. She's like, I'm not an astronomer. And then when you gotta write, in the diary, he's like, I met an astronomer today.
Some of the jokes are quite good.
And there's a few other like that kind of stood out. I was like, oh, actually, like that one when he read it down, like there was an astronomer, and like that actually. And she's like, I'm not an astronomer. It's like that's not like it's just my name. Like I've told you what I am.
Yeah. Okay. I think I don't have any other. I think the stamina drains too fast when you're flying. But apart from that, I don't really have anything else on the.
Yeah, one other thing hasn't come up yet.
The music.
Music.
Yeah, the music is so good.
Is incredible.
Very like Breath of the Wild. Used very light touch, but when it does come in, it is.
Yeah, it's less. When it comes in, it's less minimalist than Breath of the Wild. Like Breath of the Wild, it's like sometimes you're like, is that music or the wind? You know, it's in a really amazing way. God, this is. Breath of the Wild. Let's do that. Let's put that on the list. That's really reminded me a lot of it. But yeah, no, the music it does a lot of like it will. They say when it starts raining, it'll come in as like this beautiful like piano piece.
Is that piano? What you just did there?
Violin. I meant to say violin. I don't know why I say
Breath of the Wild.
The word was that's what it is. Probably. Yeah. The gesture was right. The word was wrong. It's just my gamer game. And then like sometimes when you reach a new area, like you get to a foggy area, like the music will come in, or just some of these when you climb to the top of something high, like
or glide.
If you glide, it's like a really joyous
nice,
thing, or like if you're swimming for a while, it comes in, and every time it's almost like Death Stranding.
Yeah, I was going to say the same.
When like a low roar song would come in.
Yeah,
and fantastic music.
And as far as I can tell, voice acting was good. Because obviously it's not in English, but it sounded like it was sounded very natural and
really varied voices.
Yeah, and also sound effects. I mean, obviously I had that weird bug, but the sound effects were good. Like especially hearing the bugs as you're running around and stuff like different. I don't know what they're called, like diegetic
so many
sounds?
different uses of the word bug.
Yeah,
interchangeably.
Diegetic sounds, what they're called, isn't it? Where it's like
in world sounds.
Yeah, in world sounds. Yeah, so like they're all really good of like the stream going past and stuff. So just generally a very lovely game and a very lovely experience. I think. If I had found this game a few years ago, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. I think my patience for the Switch is just getting so thin that it's kind of it's almost like a chore every time I use it.
Well, by next podcast, we'll know of the Switch too.
Apparently May, June. People are saying May, June might be out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It may be
also,
June.
Did you
is that
see,
what I said?
Yeah. Did you also see, just to really date this podcast, the new app, Nintendo Today?
Oh, it's just like a calendar thing with
They
news
announced
updates.
they announced the Zelda film for it.
Oh, there's a film.
Yeah, it's coming out. They're like, the live action Zelda film's coming out in 2026, like with an actual day. I can't remember what it was. Like on the app, and I was like, oh, like someone sent it to me, and I was like, where did you find that? And they were like, oh, in the Nintendo app.
The thing is, everyone's going to want to get the app now, and there's never going to be as big an announcement of that.
I reckon Switch 2 lead up, there's going to be loads of stuff in it, and then they're never going to update it again. Yeah. That's my what I predict. Something we didn't mention, but I just very quickly want to touch on, moving around the world is actually really fun. Jumping, running, sprinting, flying. It all feels good to do. Not like a Mario game level, but not far off.
The double jump, the double jump, you have really little air control on it. It's quite it's quite a canned animation.
Yeah.
The double jump's not great. Okay. Apart from that. I mean, it's great once you just jump over rooftops. Literally, it's insane. It's so strong.
Yeah.
So one of the things, two quick things I want to say. One thing is, did you see the like fortune teller?
I think I got word of them being about, but I never went to go and see them.
So they stay in they're in the circus. They stay in the guest house.
Oh, then probably not then.
She's like blonde hair.
Is her name Love?
Yes.
Oh, I did see it. Yeah, I did see
Yeah.
it. I did see it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So there's a system with her where you can go to speak to her every morning or in the evening to find out about the next day.
I did not know that.
And she picks, but it's really smart.
Yeah.
But basically, you pick 4 cards, and it'll basically she'll say like, "Oh, I feel like there's something interesting going to be happening down at the train station. Like, oh, it seems like there's a rare fish here." And so she basically gives you like nudges for like, oh, in the evening here, there's something going on in the town square. And it just gives you, it doesn't tell you exactly what it will be, but it just lets you know, hey, there's these things in these places throughout the world. And it becomes really handy for like, okay, I can see that there's a few things here. I'll go do that. Or, oh, none of it. Like, because sometimes it will just be like, oh, I think in this cave there'll be treasure, maybe a diamond. I'm like, okay, forget about that. You know, like, you know.
3 of them underneath the bridge, mate. Like, don't you worry about.
Yeah.
Does it mark it on the map? Because the map's really good in this game as well.
No, but
it doesn't.
But it will. You can reference it whenever you want.
Okay.
It has a separate tab on the missions thing,
Nice.
and it will be like, oh, it's in Tengu Falls, and like Tengu Falls will be
Yeah.
bold. So you just bring up the map. You never struggle finding out where, you know. And it's one of those games where you're in the world long enough, you kind of just learn your way around. Like, you'll say, go here, and I'm like, okay, I know my shortcut I always use.
Great environment and also great in-game map. And then when you go to the museum and you see the actual map that you're looking at, it's the little model on the table.
That's cool.
I was like, oh, that's what I've been referencing this
cool.
whole time. Yeah, super cool. Also, I don't know what it's called in games, but a lot of my favorite games have this thing where it's like, you find something in the game that's going to help you, but if you never found it, it wouldn't ruin it. So like the fortune teller is a good example of that. Yeah. Like Dead Rising has hundreds of them where it's like, way back when we did Onimusha, and it had like, oh, you found the scroll where you can hear what the dead think. Yeah. And they would say like, oh, that's a poison.
I think they really... I think maybe she hadn't... I don't know. Maybe you just
I'll tell you what it is. No, I'll tell you what it is. Like every eve, like I went out one evening and then it was like, you shouldn't go out too late in the evening, and I put it back in the house. And I was like, oh, so after dinner, I may as well just go to bed then. And I just started going to bed.
So you got to be in bed before 9 p.m.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't get to do the morning exercise.
Yeah, so I read that online. But then I was like, and whenever I leave the house in the evening, it just goes, oh, you shouldn't go too far at night.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah. So if you try to go really far away, you can't. But like around, like you can go all the way to the lighthouse and stuff. Like you can't go in the water and that.
You can't go in the water.
But there's still, there's like unique stuff in the evening.
Oh, I think it pinged me like right away. Do you know, it might have been that I hadn't unlocked the town yet. Because you know, the areas are in shade. Yeah. And I tried to run that way at night because it's straight out the house. Maybe that's why it pinged me and said you can't go.
Possibly. Yeah, no, because I always kind of had an evening routine or something.
Yeah, I didn't do any.
That's when I collected acorns and stuff because there's a few acorn trees.
Yeah, I went every evening straight to bed. Didn't talk. I talked to the woman who runs the guest house. Yeah. Sometimes I talk to the detective if I could be bothered to get through whatever suspicious with the fishes, like whatever nonsense he was talking about. Yeah. And then usually the other rooms, I went into one room and the guy was like, you shouldn't walk into people's rooms. And I was like, I'm just a kid. What?
Did you ever have a bath?
No, you have a bath.
There's a bath there.
What does that does it do anything?
But you have bath like after I assume you haven't before, so I didn't find it until later as well. Yeah. But like sometimes after the circus, they're like, we're gonna have a bath, and it'd be like all the guys, and they're all like perfectly in a row, looking forward at the camera, having a conversation, and like you just see like his head poking out. It's really great. You would really like it.
I did go up to Mushroom Mountain at night with the girl. But she's like,
oh, she's scared.
She's like, oh yeah, I want to go. So then I think,
is that when they talk about snakes, or was there snakes or something?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, maybe I thought that I could only go out if she was with me or something. I definitely ran around a little bit, but I have it on video of it being like, you shouldn't go away at night, and then it.
There is a limit to how far you can go.
Mate, this was like behind the guest house. Literally like right outside. I was like, oh, I'll just go.
And it definitely was it too late? Was it after 9 p.m.?
I don't know. Can't remember. This was like day one.
Okay, but the love person. The fortune teller. Yeah. She's like the room next to you. So like, like in the guest house, and then also at the circus. She's after the show. That's when I'd normally talk to her, and she would give my fortune about the next day. So that's when I went to talk to her.
Didn't know she did that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I want to say is just kind of more of a general thing. Yep. And I think I've said something similar before, but this game really fit into that mold of just. I found out that most of my favorite games, apart from pure narrative games, fall into the camp of a game that allows you to like. Make a plan and follow through. Whereas other, because I'm generally not a fan of most open world games because I don't like doing a mission, bringing up the mini map and picking an icon, which this game doesn't really have any of that. It's like you say about like you're going to bed and then I'm like, oh, tomorrow I know I want to do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
But if someone else was playing, they would have a different list or do things in a different order, and the satisfaction of having the freedom to decide what you want to do in the next day. And I think that is such a good metaphor to what this game is about, which is being a kid. And that's what it felt like in summer holidays, especially if you were somewhere with other kids and it was like, what are we going to go, like, what are we going to play today? And so I think this game, throughout its gameplay, not just its story, it captured that essence.
Also, it's just quite a good, the sun setting and the day ending, quite a few times I would be like, oh, what's that? And then the day would end. I'd be like, right, tomorrow I'm going to go back and I'm going to like, the waterfalls was a big one where I started to see the logs that are going across. I was like, oh, I can run around in there. And then it was like, oh, I found you. How do you feel about the day? I don't know what that adds up to. Oh, I think the game's got multiple endings as well, because the previous ones did.
Okay.
I don't know what they are. I don't know what your ending was like or what happened. So,
I mean, I can. There's no point. Actually, there's not even really anything.
Tell me off air.
Okay. Yeah. I don't really know, but yeah, like it's that. Yeah, that kind of openness and that freedom was kind of a delight the whole way through. And like
the game's a delight. The game's a delight for sure.
Yeah, because like in other games, that would be, oh, I like the freedom in Elden Ring to pick which boss to fight, or like which sword to pick, and what am I going to level up, or what spells am I going to, and this is like, it is actually occupying part of the same brain when I'm making a plan here as I am in, or an immersive sim that has a lot of freedom or something. It really captures that. Oh, one other little bit that you wouldn't have seen is at some point you run out of, when you're thinking your diary, you do a little picture, you run out of coloured pencils. Oh, yeah. And he has to do it all in black and white, but then he gets another set as a present, and then he carries on. It's just those little
it's a very charming game, isn't it? Very charming.
There's a lot of little tiny moments like that where you're just like, that is something that you could imagine with games, how difficult they are to make and deadlines. That could have so easily been cut, but it adds so much. Someone had just like, I just imagine someone going up to their boss like, hey, I got an idea. Imagine if he runs out of like,
it would be quite
colour.
And also, because I guess you could do anything in any order, but all you need to do is like have the crayon image in grayscale, and you've done it. That's really clever. That's very clever. A lot of clever little ideas. Would you like to hear some comments?
Yeah, I'm glad we got some.
We got two. This one is quite long, but it's from the King, Josh Iyer. On our Discord said,
the music lover.
He actually put a bit about the music that was really complicated and niche, and I cut it because the comment was really long. But
sorry, Josh, you're too you're too clever.
You're too clever. He said, I tried to cut down my excitement of one of my favorite games on the show so far. I'm literally in heaven playing Natsu-mon. Thank you for introducing us all to it. I recently read Kelsey Lewin's book on Animal Crossing last summer, and the way she described the Japanese N64 game felt so similar to what Natsu-mon is. The morning aerobics where you get stamps in Natsumon was an event in the August mornings at 6 a.m. in the original Animal Crossing. Plus the immersion of buzzing cicadas and crickets, seeing Japanese architecture and furniture items, and dialogue that feels distinctly Japanese and translated as close as possible to English. They had to change a lot of this and rewrite dialogue when porting Animal Crossing to the West, so it's great to play a life sim game that's entirely embracing its Japanese roots. It increases my desire to travel to Japan one day, as well as brings nostalgia for my favourite series mixed with Zelda. So he got it. He completely got it, which is super cool.
That was actually like a really, just a summary of this whole podcast.
We get comments like that quite a lot. I mean, it's just much more succinct than
I guess we all played the same game.
Exactly. And then Monkey from Ape Escape on YouTube, which is a 10 out of 10 username, said, Boku no Natsu Yasumi, this game's predecessor, struck me so deeply in part because it's a Japan-only game that I played without knowing any Japanese. Doing so strongly elevated the feeling of childlike wonder and discovery. How well does this game capture the sensation of being a kid and learning about the world? Well, obviously we've been talking.
You skipped all the dialogue, so you had a similar... It might as well have been Japanese to you.
Mate, you can't blame me. Like, it's not like mega captivating, is it? Like, it really isn't super captivating dialogue.
It grew on me that I don't know. I never... Like, I'm trying to reanalyze and think back now to why, like... As in, was it good? Like, I think...
Like, just a lot of it was just nothing for me. That was why I was skipping it.
There was some of that. I think maybe it's I'm really remembering the really nice moments, like the funny moments. I think I'm remembering the good moments much more than the average moments. But maybe the special moments were in the minority.
Yeah, it definitely has nice dialogue and nice moments, and the narrator, the framing, and everything. It was all really, really good.
And I just love the fact there's no combat. And I know it's like, because
you got to shoot the pigs. Not kill them, to stun them and capture them and put them in Joe's slum. Not to...
Yeah, because I think the problem is, because obviously like combat is fun in a lot of games, but I think the problem with combat compared to like, so say games that has like story moments, puzzles and combat and like maybe platforming, like Zelda, you know, has all of those things. Combat always ends up being just the main thing you're doing. Yeah. Because with combat, you're building a bunch of systems. You've built your enemies, you have the AI, you've built your weapons, the combo system, whatever. Once you've spent a lot of time making that, you can repeat it really easily. Whereas every time you're doing a puzzle or a platforming section, you're having to handcraft it every time. Yeah. So it means that games that have combat always ends up being the main thing you do. And I always end up getting bored of that before the puzzles or the story or whatever else, the platforming. And I think because they've removed that, they've almost removed a crutch that a lot of other games have. And so a lot of the things you do, you know, obviously you're catching a lot of bugs and stuff, but like a lot of the actual other moments, they're a bit more custom made and a bit more varied. Whereas games in combat, you know, they might have a bunch of other variety, but you always end up doing like 70% combat in them anyway. Yeah,
you're completely right. Maybe this game, what it accidentally fell back onto though was climbing. As its thing. Okay. Also, by the way, I know what you said about the fast travel system was like Breath of the Wild. Was it in Breath of the Wild where you like go in the tower and they like fire you out of it?
That's Tears of the Kingdom.
Imagine if it was like that. You get the bus somewhere, it launches you out, you fly down.
So I mean, the fast travel system is just once you've reached a sign, it's added. You can go back. You don't have the bus ticket thing, but it's basically you have to have reached it once, and then you can teleport to it from anywhere. Yeah. So that's what was similar. But yeah, Tears of the Kingdom had the tower.
That'd be great in this game, though. Okay.
Yeah, see it on the Switch. You just a little smudge of green that you're flying above.
Should we do the list then?
Yes, put it on the list.
Sweet. Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/the bonus points. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo!
Okay. Natsu-mon, it's time. I'm not even going to...
Put it on the list.
I'm not even
Thanks for watching.
Do you know what? I'm gonna use LA Noire as the starting point, but it's definitely not going to be that far down.
What? Okay.
Because I always choose. I go like if I'm thinking it's going to be near Portal 2, I'll use Portal 2 as the starting point. Like when I copy and paste it. When I watch it back, I'm always like, I did it every time. So this time, just doing it at the bottom.
Yeah, it's hard to, like. My impression is, I think I'm a bit hotter on it than you are.
Yep.
Based on the conversation.
Yep.
But sometimes sometimes we have a conversation and I feel like, he didn't seem that into it. And we get to the end and you're like, well, it's going to be top 10. I'm like, okay. You know, sometimes you surprise me with.
Not this time, I'm afraid. I think this game is absolutely wonderful. It's so unique and it's like, it's a joy. But I feel like the way that I played it and the time that it's reached me, it just didn't hit the way that, because I watched a 5-hour documentary on this series before this game was even announced. So I was like, into the idea, completely open-minded, like, I'm actually going to get to play one of these. And then actually when I got to playing it, it felt like a bit more of a chore than I would have wanted. Okay. That's kind of where I am. But I think, in terms of the idea and everything, and if you can play it on the Steam Deck, then even better. But
I think maybe an appropriate threshold just to kind of work out, are we talking above and below, is Earthbound. I think it might be a nice one because Earthbound's at 25.
Yep.
I think I would probably be looking at slightly above Earthbound, but around Earthbound.
Wouldn't it
not much higher, but probably around. So it's Earthbound, Helldivers 2. That's the sort of area I'm thinking.
I mean, it's funny that it might end up being paired with Japanese holiday simulator Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
It's like we have like the kid and adult version of an adult holiday and a kid holiday.
Okay, I'm actually pretty... I think any of those games, I'd probably put it above, except for Half-Life Alyx. I think I would struggle.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to be talking around like 30s, 40s.
Yeah, well, I was thinking of starting around Dead Rising just because I think it's funny how similar structurally they are. I think, I wish I had a different experience actually playing it. I found it so frustrating. Just because
what did you find frustrating?
Just the loading, like the frame rate, and like it's just like one of those things where it's like, I've got to turn the Switch on and like.
Yeah.
It's just not cool.
I wonder if you were playing on Steam Deck. I wonder if that would have.
Yeah. Also, I think
you a
maybe
bit
the fact that I was doing it for the show. So like, I'm always thinking because I was recording it, so I was thinking like I need to do something that's going to look cool in the video rather than.
It does change your mindset.
It changed your mindset, and also trying to play it within the 2 weeks rather than dragging it out over however long I would. And also, you played it on your trip to San Francisco.
Yes.
So you had like 14 hours of...
I had like the first time I played it, I probably played it for about 8-9 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Not completely.
Yeah. You played it longer in your first session than I played it total.
Yeah. and that was when I was playing relax. And I think that's what messed up my pace. Like, something I didn't really talk about is at the end, I kind of was like, the things I had left to do were like catch rare fish and like, you've collected 230 of the 250 bugs. And I'm like, I'm not like, I don't even know where to start to get the other ones. Or there was like the Ghost Girl, I'd got 27 out of 30. I was like, but it doesn't mark the ones that you have found. And like, I was like, I don't want to go to guide. It doesn't feel like a sort of game for guide. So
there's hardly any guides either, by the way.
Yeah. And so I had a few days of like, I actually don't really have anything to do here.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's only because I think it would have probably been paced perfectly if I didn't do the relaxed days at the beginning. Yeah. I think I messed up for myself there.
I used a guide to get the cape because I was like, I want some video of the cape.
Okay.
So how do I get that? But then when I looked up like information about the game, there's hardly any. There's 2 guides about the cape. That's all I could find. Like when I searched like Natsumon tips, got nothing. No websites covering it. Nothing. So, but anyway, we're up.
I'd quite like it next. Did you think? No, I think actually above. Like a Dragon, underneath Like a Dragon.
What?
So
above Like a Dragon, underneath Like a Dragon.
Sorry, above Helldivers.
Yeah.
under Like a Dragon.
I think that's a perfect place for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely little game. And just for
I mean that 24
is amazing.
Out of like 84. Like, that's like very, very good, lovely little game.
That is a lovely little game.
It almost feels like you're being derivative. I'm not saying you, but it is what it is. Because it isn't trying to be some big epic story, whatever.
Yeah,
it is just really pleasant. But it's like that's enough, like
yeah, definitely.
and that's not easy to do.
No,
like if they messed up, like imagine if the Concord team were trying to make a game like that. Like it's nailing to a world and characters that people fall in love with is as difficult as you've got to balance the boss to make sure that are the hit points appropriate.
I can't believe Concord's catching strays out here, and it's not even. You just dragged it.
Well, no, because that's why I brought up Concord is because like everyone said that the gameplay was great, or at least really good, but they just didn't care about the world and the story. So I'm saying that like creating characters and a world that people want to be in is, I think, probably a little bit underrated or not as appreciated as kind of like, the game feels really good to control. It doesn't Mario jump well, like. Yeah,
and also we've talked before, actually we were talking about Dragon Quest, like this hat I'm wearing, and saying about how nice it is to play something that's engineered to be nice. And this is a prime example of that. What I was going to say, just randomly, way back when we did Resident Evil, I mentioned that there was a game that Sony was developing where they realized that if you hold down the run button for fixed camera, it's easier to navigate indoors. They were talking about this game. So way back when we did that, that's when I was watching the documentary about it. So it's come full circle.
Those old games, the graphics are so good on those background screens.
Pre-rendered backgrounds.
PS1 looks so, and then the PS2 one I found that you don't think exists, but I promise it does.
No, it does. I just think there's more than one because there's one where you play as an adult and you have kids and you basically send them out for the day and it like influences how they grow up.
Okay.
So it's like, I gave them a book about art or I gave them a book about something more academic, and it's like will change their life. And it has the narrator being like, my son grew up to be just stuff like that.
So the one I looked at, I can't remember exactly what it was called, but it had 2 in the title. So I don't know if it was like the direct sequel, but had the amazing JPEG background. But then with interactable elements, so there'd be like a spinny thing at a playground and then as you use it, it will then move.
Nice,
so it's a mixture of 3D elements you can interact and then if you would run and then it have like the puddles would like ripple and stuff like done. Like Onimusha did some of this stuff, but it seemed really good what they did for that.
Well, there's a guy who is trying to translate all of them. He's got a Patreon and he's pretty successful. I follow him on Blue Sky, so I see the updates every so often. So maybe I can send you the link. You can put it in the video. But so
it'd be good to skip through English dialogue rather than Japanese when you next play.
You're really making it sound like a really big... Anyone that's played it, imagine having a conversation with a 10-year-old boy for 6 hours. Like, that's what the game is like.
But I think you missed so much important gameplay stuff from
true,
it. You know,
true.
like,
Look,
did
mate,
you know
if
you
it-
could jump? I found out you could jump. They never tell you could jump.
Mate, at the end of the day, if it was more compelling, I wouldn't have skipped it, would I? At the end of the day, mate. Right, anyway, 24. Congratulations to the little boy, Satoru.
Yeah, do you want to read that little group for audio-only people?
So 20 is Half-Life Alyx, 21 is Donkey Kong 94, 22 is Undertale, 23 is Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, 24 is Natsumon, 25 is Helldivers. Lovely. And would you like to hear what is coming up?
Yes.
So, confirmed. These are the confirmed games we have. Dead Island 2 is April 18th. Doom The Dark Ages is the 30th of May. And Death Stranding 2 is 25th of July. That's all we have confirmed for now. So when we have more information, we'll put it out somewhere. So yeah, there we go.
Okay, cool, awesome. Also, a quick shout out to our Patreon as well.
Yep.
I know there was a little advert. We should probably update soon. So people are probably bored of hearing that.
Yeah.
Should probably update that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to let you know what it is, there'll be more detail down below. But the main thing you get is an extra podcast called Extra Credit, where we chat about all sorts of other games, TV shows, films that we've been watching, or real life events. Ollie said a funny story about the difficulties trying to get a wedding venue in the most recent ones that people
I can't
enjoy.
even talk about that. You went to GDC.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. That episode is my wedding reception.
Well, that made me laugh. But yeah, also, I went to GDC, so I talked about my experience in San Francisco, both good, bad, and
Ugly.
Fascinating.
Good, bad, and ugly, I'd say, maybe on that one. Yeah, cool. All right, well, cheers, everyone.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll see you in 2 weeks for Dead Island 2. They said Rising then, which is on Game Pass as we're recording this. So if you have Game Pass, then you got no excuse. See you next week, promptly.
Also, you'll be pleased to know you can electrify the water in that game. So.
Good. Immersive sim.
Here
we go.
Yeah, it's
That's
going to be
all I
systems.
need. Right, thanks for watching, guys. See you later. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye.